Hello Kerbal and welcome to part 4 of building a space station tutorial. Okay, this time we're going to be adding a fuel tank, or as you Americans call it, a gas station. Okay, you can see the setup I've got. I've got a orange fuel tank with 2 struts on the side where we will decouple them and we'll connect them to the space station with a fuel tank on the end. Okay, so now we're going to add the rocket stage after we add the correct docking port size. But I've decided that this was a bit too unstable. It was a bit too tall, it was a bit too top heavy, and it was tumbling when I was doing some tests with it. So why have it launch from the bottom as a standard rocket? Why not put boosters on the outside of it? Like so. We've got the radial decouplers. Now all we need to do is add some orange fuel tanks, add some engines onto there, and we can boost her up into space. Okay, if we can align these orange tanks properly. We almost got it. There we go. Alright. Next thing to do, I suppose, is to add some engines to those fuel tanks. Okay, let's go for the main sails. They'll give you enough thrust. For the thrust to weight ratio is going to be quite heavy putting a orange tank up in space. It's not an easy task, to tell you the truth. This is actually the first time I've done it, and I don't even take a full orange fuel tank up. I empty some of the fuel to lighten the load up a bit. Okay, don't forget all those important struts. Best thing to do is to build one side of the engine, in 2 stages, so you can decouple the stages into a sort of asparagus staging. Copy the engine like so, using the Alt key and left click, and then place it on the other decouplers. And just make sure they're aligned properly, because you don't want any missed torque on this rocket, because the boosters are large enough as it is. Okay, there you go. Well, that's our rocket. They're going to get us up into orbit. You can see I've got the robotic stage on the bottom. That's going to be sort of a help booster. But now to set up stages. Now this time you do it like an asparagus staging. From the first tank you're going to decouple to the second tank, but you're not going to feed the fuel to the center tank. No, you're not, because there's no center tank is not being used. In fact, if you want to, you can do the tweakables and cut off the fuel supply to it. And I forgot to record that on this video. Anyway, we added some fins to the outer rocket to make sure we have stability control as we're going through the atmosphere. And I think we're going to add now some struts to try and make sure that the bottom stage, the probe itself, is not going to move about a bit too much, because there's actually no support. There's only a docking port there holding it together. Okay, just one more. There you go, that's nice and secure. So now the center fuel tank needs to have a nose cone. So put a decoupler on there, a stack decoupler, but put it upside down, because if you don't, then that will be stuck to the docking port after you decouple it. That's very important, because I don't know if you noticed, those decouplers decouple and they stay on the stage that you've decoupled from. So now when you decouple that, the decoupler will be on the nose cone, and you'll be okay. Don't forget to add struts, because those, as I said, those docking ports they're not that stable. If you're going to launch with them, you're going to have some problems keeping it stable, especially if you've got 2 docking ports connected. So always a good point in adding as many struts as you can to your rocket. Okay, so now the aerodynamics is being dealt with. all we need to do is add some fuel lines. Ah yes, I forgot. I already added fuel lines to the top rocket. Decided to add fuel lines from that stage to the robotic stage. That way, we will have a full fuel tank in that once we've jettisoned the outer tanks. Okay, so I wasn't happy with the amount of Delta V we had. 3,900. It needs a little extra boost. So what we'll do is we'll add some solid rocket boosters and use the thumper. The reason why I'm using the thumper rather than larger ones is because it looks about the right size. Okay, so we'll add 4 on there. I decide later on that we need to add a few more on the sides, but we'll get to that. Now, first off, we have to add some small space tape, because a stable rocket is brilliant. It's easy. It's easier to get up into orbit. If you have any wobble in your rocket and you're trying to get up into orbit, you'll find that you could veer off course and you'll lose control. Because once you're off that prograde vector, the aerodynamics is going to take over. It's going to flip your rocket over, and you're going to lose control. So as much space tape as you can. Okay, so final piece here. Right, I think that's it. All we need to do is add some nose cones. Okay, it's looking good. It's just some staging. Make sure that your staging is correct. You don't want to be going off. Hit the spacebar and find out some rocket pummel from the outside to the inner rocket. That adds an extra 200 meters per second, and you can't say no to that, can you? Anyway, now let's add some launch stability enhancers. They're going to be in the way, actually, because I don't know what I was thinking. Perhaps I thought those 4 rock boosters would be enough, because we've only got 4,000 meters per second. That's not enough to get it into orbit. Well, it is enough, but it's probably not enough for us to rendezvous with the station. Okay, so now I'm not happy with those thrust to weight ratio. Can't be right. And no, it's not right. In actual fact, it was that I forgot to press the atmospheric button on the Kerbal engine redux mod. And if I had done that, I would have realized there's not enough thrust to weight ratio. Enough thrust to weight on the rocket. So because the thrust to weight ratio is different on the engines between in atmosphere and in space. So always make sure that you know that before you go and launch. Anyway, we put the thrust to full, and this is where I decide, well, let's add those extra boosters after all. Okay, it's just a simple matter of copying the rocket and put it on the side. But you forgot to put symmetry to 2, Mark. Will he realise? Not yet. He's gonna get rid of the stability enhancers. But I think he has realised. Yep, I have realised that we haven't got enough rockets on the entire rocket. Now, if you look at the torque on the Kerbal engine redux, it shows you a torque of over 1,000 newtons or so. And that tells you that the rocket is going to either tilt sideways, and the thrust is uneven, or the balance of the rocket is uneven. The best thing to do is always keep that at 0, and you should be fine. Okay, so we've got it all set up, 4,153. We could always nick some fuel from that center fuel tank to get it up there. The last thing to do is add some launch stability enhancers. But I do come around and realize that there's a couple of things missing. And they are, firstly, those large orange tanks are not going to separate quite easily. So what you can do is you can add some separatrons to your rocket sideways. In hindsight, I would have loved to not to put them pointing directly at the fuel tank, because they can easily heat up the rocket. In fact, that becomes a problem when we get up into orbit. Right, but at this point I thought, oh, they're far enough, they're not going to cause any problems. Anyway, put about 8 on each tank. Sorry, 4 on each tank, so that's 8 for each stage. And that becomes a bit of a problem when doing staging, but well, not really a problem. It's just a matter of making sure you've got the right Separatrons and you set them up in the right stages. Okay, now comes the part where we add the staging. Okay, they're all up, all the Separatrons are up there, so what we'll have to do is find out which ones are which. Okay, that's that stage. Which stage is which one? That's the second, that's the first one. It's going to decouple. So let's concentrate on them. Okay, there, that stage. Okay, all those 4 stages of the Separatrons are for that stage. So just click them to open them up and then drag them to the stage. Easy. As simple as rocket science. Okay, that's one stage. Right, rather than drag all them down there, let's create another stage. Put that decouple node in there and move the radial decouplers to that stage. Okay, that's the Separatron setup. Save that. And I suppose go to launch. No, not. First thing I realized on the launch pad, this rocket is going to, this fuel tank is going to be unwieldy to control in space. So what we're going to do is add some RCS thrusters to it. This will make sure that you can maneuver it when you're coming into dock. Like bringing something large up, you do need the extra thrust. If it was a small fuel tank, you may get away with it. Okay, so I think that is all. No, there's one more thing. Those nodes, those coupling nodes on the side there, were a bit too low. I want the robotic probe to come and dock to it before we decouple them from the main body of the rocket. And the reason for that is that decoupler is going to thrust it to the side and away, unable to dock from. Anyway, now it's time to get it into orbit. Okay, standard orbit profile. And I think I'll take you through the entire launch of this. Bit of a fast forward because you don't want to watch the entire launch in normal time. Okay. Oh, explosions from those rockets colliding with each other. I love the new aerodynamics on this game, actually. At first I was a bit iffy with it because it made most of my rockets unstable. I had to really build everything. But it's fine. Okay. There you go. Those Separatrons are separated, but you'll see those heat triangles come up on the rocket. It's heated the rocket up, and so are the other stages going to do that as well. That will become a problem soon, but one problem at a time. Okay, everything's looking good. Stages are coming down. It looks like we're going to make it into orbit with enough fuel in the outer tanks. Everything's looking good, so this, ladies and gentlemen, is a triumph in rocket engineering. Not really, but I was proud of this, even though I found some problems later on. Okay, that's good. Now, standard orbit. And you see those, when we jettison those rockets, those Separatrons have caused some heating problems. And the heat seems to be still rising. I think what happens is those rockets heat a certain part of the spacecraft up and it transfers to other parts. And that's why not just, 1 or 2 parts are heated up. Anyway, I'll bring you into normal time here. And look, the heat, I don't think the developers thought of this. The heat is causing the ablator on the heat shield to go down. Anyway, enough of that. Let's try and get this node off. It all seems to be cooling down slowly, so we should be alright. I'm trying to click on the decoupling node on this nose cone. I think I put the nose cone right on the decoupler there. If you do have this problem, there is one way around it. If you've got it on a docking port, and that is right click on the docking port and decouple. Okay, that's worked. So just thrust out this way. The only problem is that's going to be more space junk in orbit around Kerbal. And I think I've got quite a bit of space junk. I just haven't activated it on the map to make it visible. Right. I had the space station up further ahead because I thought it was going to be a long launch. And you can click, like there now, I've just clicked on the +1 orbit. And you see we're getting close. Oh. So it looks like I click one orbit down. There you go. There's our closest approach. Now a little bit of fiddling. How far? 4.3. That's quite good. So we can get closer. 3.4. That's brilliant. And also notice that we're on the maneuver node is on a descending node. So what you can do is adjust your app, get that descending node close to 0 or close to 1. And 1.1 kilometers, I think we'll stick with that. Now it's going to take almost one entire orbit and then a bit of thrusting. Right, as usual, I do my little trick, check the distance and do some manual thrusting. Manual thrusting. Get our closest approach anyway. And I'm happy with that. Okay, so it's just a bit of time warping to our destination. Everything's going so good so far, but I'm now beginning to worry about that overheating. Because I think it's spread to multiple parts. It's like a disease. It's spreading across the station. You know, what happens if it gets in contact with the station? Will we have to quarantine the space station? Keep the Kerbals at bay? Anyway, we're coming in for docking and we're coming quite fast, so I think this is the problem. This is the time where we encounter a second problem other than the heating. Okay, we're getting ready. I think it's best the time to start thrusting. Yep. As you can see, our fuel is getting quite low. In fact, if you look at the Delta V and the Kerbal Flight Engineer, we don't have enough to kill the entire velocity. So this is the part where I decide to click on the tank, press Alt, click on the second tank, and transfer. Okay, that should be enough. I know the fuel's uneven in between the oxygen and the liquid fuel, but that's okay, as long as we can get into our closest approach, our rendezvous. We can refuel, we can put the fuel we haven't used back into the orange tank, just give enough fuel for that probe to deorbit, and we should be fine. Right. Let's get closer to the station. And now I think I've switched to RCS, because, well, let's face it, we're not traveling too fast. And even with those RCS on the orange tank, I still find it hard to control. You see, as soon as we thrust sideways, the tank wants to go one way. Okay, we come into our parking. Parallel park right next to the space station. And now it's time for our robotic probe. I have to mention, I've got a bit of a head cold, and rather than manually dock everything, I decided where this tank is going to be unwieldy, it's going to be a bit hard. I'll use the automation probe and do all that. Because to tell the truth, we're going to be going to the man, we're going to be doing a mining operation, so there's going to be a lot of manual docking that I want to do. I don't know what it is, I enjoy doing manual docking. But watching this probe dock is quite interesting as well. Okay, decouple. See, if that was, well, if that docking port was a bit further down the orange tank, that probe would not be able to dock, and we'd have problems. Okay, so now I try and select the docking port. And I don't think I set it as a target by here. But realizing that, I come back and set it as a target, and it docks. Now, can you see what I'm doing here? Though, yeah, you should see by now we're gonna have those docking ports extended out from the station, so that fuel tank is far away from the station. So if we dock a spacecraft with a space station, and it comes in too fast, too hard, then it hopefully will break those arms off, not damage the station, and that Kerbals will be fine. Okay, so this is the last part. We're going to dock our fuel tank. I decided to bring the speed of MechJeb here down to 0.2. But 0.2 seems to be stopped for MechJeb, so 0.5 seems to be the minimum docking speed. Anyway, let's talk about the next episode, or we're going to go to the man, do some mining. I'm going to send a scanning probe, some impactors, so look forward to that in the next episode, and then we're going to be set up a space station or something around there. Anyway, if you like this video, hit that like button. Well, that was a bit close to the station. Oh, no. Accidentally hit the Z key there. Anyway, if you like the video, hit the like button, comment, ask me anything, or ask me to do anything tutorial, watch the rockets blow up, because, well, trust me, I'm an engineer.